Welcome to Synthesize This. In this episode, we're going to be synthesizing a RHYTHMIC patch on the Dave Smith Instruments Pro 2. Let's get started. So as always, the first thing we want to do is initialize a basic patch. So we go to global, go to 34 and hit right now. So what we're going to do in this video is try to synthesize a RHYTHMIC patch. So we're not going after a specific sound to emulate. We are just going to create something using the sequencer with lots of moving parts and modulation. So let's get started. First, let's turn on the sequencer. By default, it just plays a bunch of C's, but we're going to record a melody shortly. Let's move away from the sawtooth and try to explore with some more interesting tones. Like some of the wavetables. Let's try this mellow one. And you can modulate the wave shape, which basically morphs this initial wave between these other two waves, which you can actually select. So for example, all the way to the left here I have muted, all the way to right I have this nasal one. So let's start out by recording a basic sequence. I'm just going to hit the record button and play a few notes. I'm going to slow it down a little bit. Let's try modulating the wave shape of the first oscillator along with the sequencer. So have the sequencer modulate it. And the easiest way to do that is just to hit play and then hold record while moving the parameter. Let's engage the second oscillator. Let's try the ah one and bring up the volume. Maybe change the pitch an octave higher. And as I morph the wave shape mod, in this case, let's have an LFO modulate the oscillators 2 shape mod. So I'm going to choose oscillator 2 shape mod as my destination, bring up the amount, lower the frequency a little bit, and see what that sounds like. Let's synchronize the LFO to the clock. Maybe slow it down to 1/8 notes. Let's try different waves, LFO waves. Of course, we can also use a sequencer to modulate that shape mod. Let's bring in a third oscillator. Let's modulate the volume of oscillator 3 with the sequencer. As well as the shape mod. And finally for oscillator 4, I'm just going to bring a noise source, so pick white noise. And I'm going to try to program this in the pattern of a snare. And I'm going to edit the step because I misplayed it a little bit. So you can pick an individual step and set the value by hand here. Alright, so I'm pretty happy with the oscillator section. We might go back and tweak some of the character later, but let's move on to the filter for now. So I'm going to change my envelope shape for the filter 1 to be more of a plucky sound. So I'm going to reduce the sustain and attack and then bring up the decay and release. Same for the amp envelope. And of course, like any other parameter, we can modulate the filter cutoff with the sequencer as well. So let's go ahead and do that. As well as the resonance. It's a little more subtle, that one. Let's see what the character section has. I can play with the decimate, drive, and hack. It's going to tweak around to see if I can come up with something nice. This hack sounds cool, so I'm going to modulate that with one of the sequencer channels. I'm going to pick an empty slot here and pick hack as my destination. And now I'm just going to program the steps by hand, step by step, by holding the step key and then tweaking the step value knob. And just for fun, I'm going to make the hack modulation track only have 8 steps. So the cool thing about the sequencers here, you have 16 tracks and each track can have its own step length. So just hold the step you want and then press reset. And now this is an 8-step track for the hack modulation. So let's see what that sounds like. That's pretty cool. Let's see what distortion sounds like. I'm going to try to modulate it in real time. Another thing I want to modulate is maybe the decimate. So I'm going to pick track 11, which has nothing, and then choose decimate in the destination. Now let's try 4 steps for this one. So you get these interesting polyrhythmic effects because these steps repeat every time while all the other steps go up to 16. So that sounds pretty cool for this section here. Let's bring out some of the delay units so we add a little more effects. I'm going to bring in the BDD delay, which is the last one. And I'm going to turn on syncing so it synchronizes with the clock of the sequencer. Let's try 1/8 notes for now and see what that sounds like. I'm going to turn on the first delay as well and synchronize that one, and this one will be 16th notes. And again, I can modulate this parameter as well. I'll modulate the amount for delay 1 so that it only comes in at certain points. So you can hear the 16th notes only come in the middle of the sequence. And then we can turn on the other delays as well and make them a little more subtle and quick, just to add a little more atmosphere, almost like a reverb. I can bring up the sub octave to beef up the sound a little bit. So now it almost sounds like we have a bass line, a melodic line, and a snare drum happening at the same time. Another thing we can do to make it a little more eerie and weird is to modulate the delay's time, which will also modulate the pitch. So let's modulate the fourth delay's time with the sequencer, the same way we've done before, recording it in real time. So now we get this eerie effect because the pitch slightly goes up and down along with the delay modulation. Let's try making the sequence much slower. Try changing the oscillator types.